Welcome to the Porsche Club Insider, your one stop for all things Porsche and PCA. Here's your host, Vu Gwyn, and the Insider crew.
I think we have to get an alternative opening that doesn't say Vu Gwyn.
I think.
Believe it or not, Vu's not here today. Vu is out of town meeting with a partner of PCA, so he would love to have been here, being a 356 owner, but he got his schedule mixed up and discovered that he would not be here for the podcast. So it's me and Damon filling in, and shout out to Damon. We're recording this 12 hours after we finished doing Tech Tactics Live last night, which was a return after a year and a half, and this is the first time Damon was at the controls. We used to have Robert doing it, but after he left, we were in a kind of a lull, and Damon bought all new equipment, taught himself how to use it, which wasn't the easiest equipment to I could hear a lot of phone calls with him in support, because sometimes things aren't made the way you think they're supposed to be made. But anyways, I think he did a flawless job of doing this. In a live show, there's a lot of pressure. Unlike the podcast here is recorded, so we can always go back and edit. But the live, you are obviously live, so you can't make any mistakes, or everyone sees you. So shout out to Damon. He's awake Damon. And here after a long day yesterday at PCA. So on this podcast, we have two guests, two PCA members from Chesapeake region, who are both at Boardwalk Reunion with their 356s, and they both drove the 356s up to New Jersey. And David had his freshly restored 356, and after hearing the story he told to about 10 different people, I thought, you know what, it's a pretty good story, and probably be nice to share it with our listeners, and maybe get some lessons learned about restoring your car. Because Rob, I brought him on because he has been talking for the past couple of years about either fixing the problems he has with 356 or doing a full restoration. And I always joke that don't get your odometer fixed, because if you have a broken odometer and you have an old car, you send your odometer out and they're going to clean the odometer, make it look pretty. You're going to put it back in your dash, and it's going to make the other gauges look terrible. So you're going to send them out. You're going to get those cleaned, and now you have all your gauges look good, but your dash looks terrible. So then you start working on the interior. Long story short, you've looked at a full bare metal restoration, all because you wanted to get your odometer fixed.
We call that the rabbit hole.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. So does Rob want to go down the rabbit hole, or does he just want to get his doors fixed and keep on living life with the unoriginal color on his car? So it should be a good podcast for anyone listening, not just for 356 owners, but anyone who's thinking about restoring their car, as well as maybe doing some body work or something to fix it up that may take you down the rabbit hole. So we have David Dukehart, Chesapeake region, who's also the president of the
Gullwing Group,
which is the Mercedes Gullwing, which includes now the original 54 to 56. Is that
56? The 300 SL Gullwings, the Roadsters, which go into the 60s, and then we've invited the SLS AMG modern homage to the 300 SLs to join us as well.
Well, when they join, is there like a separate? Do they keep the one end and the?
No, we try to keep everyone one big happy family for everybody. That's what we try to do. It's still a challenge, but we're working on it.
And we have Rob Rohrbach, who inherited, I wish your dad's still alive, though, but your dad gave you his 356, so you've been a Porsche guy really your whole life, I guess.
Yeah, since the mid-'70s, Dad bought a 64 SC. That was a super project car. He attempted to start doing the restoration on his own. I remember one of the earliest memories I have of me being involved with a Porsche is sitting on a paint bucket in the passenger seat of the car, looking at the road go by under my feet as we went down the street, because the car was gutted, and he had the engine running, and that was the most important thing. But he quickly moved on from that, realized it was too much, and bought the current car, the 64C that I have. He bought that in '86, so we've had that in the family for quite some time, and it's been through a few iterations of engine rebuilds and everything, but never fully restored. So
Now, before we start getting to exactly what qualifies you guys to do restorations on your own cars, I want to thank our presenting sponsor, Pirelli. Pirelli tires have to achieve the highest levels of performance, safety, noiselessness, and grip on the road surface. Innovative tires that can satisfy even the most specific mobility needs of the end consumer. Pirelli also sponsored Tech Tactics Live last night, so big shout out to Pirelli. Also, thanks for listening. If you are a current PCA member and own a Porsche, what are you waiting for? Be sure to have your VIN handy, and for those who don't currently own a Porsche, check out our test drive program. Just go to www.pca.org. Okay, now we'll get back to you guys' backgrounds. So, David, tell us your... well, actually, yours is longer, so we're going to switch to Rob. You brought a whole biography and notes and what any podcast host would dream of as to have for a guest. So, Rob, you said that they told us how your dad got this car, did multiple engine rebuilds, and then you got it. But are you and there's pictures of it on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. It's actually a beautiful car, and just like any true Porsche owner, you walk up to them and they will start telling you what's wrong with the car before you have a chance to even walk around, including the fact that it's not the original color. And I always joke, I'm like, I would have never known this stuff if somebody hadn't told me, because the car looks really good when you first see it. Are you a mechanical person? Do you work on your own cars?
I am not. Yeah. In fact, I just put the an LED kit in the exterior lights of the car, and I was very proud of that.
Nothing caught fire. So
a screwdriver and yeah, that's about it. But no, I'm not very mechanical inclined. But I have done some light work, and this guy's been teaching me too on some stuff that I've been able to get done on my own. But for the most part, I rely on the expertise of others. So
I think just owning an older car, just my necessity, you kind of learn how. I mean, when I started doing track driving, I wasn't very mechanically inclined, but you learn by being on the track. You got to learn to change brake pads, change rotors, or your day's done. And you can only rely on the help of strangers for so long. So I could do the basic stuff at the track by myself really easy. Engine rebuild at the track, not so much, but the basic stuff to keep me going, yes. So so you're probably where a lot of people sit, that they want a vintage car or they have a vintage car, but they're probably looking for a shop or someone else to do the work for them.
Yeah. The car, like I said, went through a couple of engine rebuilds, and then it sat for about 15 years in an attached garage to my dad's house, and it took about a year to get it back on the road. Did maybe a partial top-end rebuild and other odds and ends, but it wasn't really anything close to a full restoration. But we wanted to get it at least to be a driver, and corrected anything that really needed to be done in order to get it to that point. So, and it's been on the road now for 2 years. So now what's next?
I see you driving everywhere, so it's it's definitely a reliable car. When we first met you, you pointed out that the car was actually a repaint, and it wasn't repainted in the original color. What was the original color?
The original color was sky blue, which we learned is a 3-bucket paint, so it's not too rare. But you wouldn't see a lot of them, I don't think, in the 356. I've only seen one or two by looking it up, online. But the car, my dad purchased it from a dentist. He's the third. My dad's the third owner. It was silver when he purchased it, and I believe the first owner raced the car, and I think that was probably the impetus for painting it silver. I'm guessing, but it at some point in its earlier life got changed.
Silver,
so now
is silver faster? Or?
I think so.
That's the color of the German race car.
That's true.
Silver,
or maybe the sky blue's not intimidating, and
right.
You wanted something a little bit more, like you said, Germanic.
Yeah, but not, like I said, I grew up. The first one was actually the first car he bought was sky blue, but was silver as well,
oh, wow.
which is really weird. But I'm torn with taking it back to blue versus leaving it silver, just because I've grown up with it being silver.
And that whole car is silver. I mean, it's not like you open up. I don't think your door jams are blue or anything. They did a full
paint
job. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm just curious. I guess my father's obviously still with us, but he does not care which way we go. But to me, I feel like if I do paint it blue, then I'll be looking like, well, what happened to my dad's car? Like it's not here anymore. But we'll see. The verdict's still out, but I think everybody in the club is telling me it has to go back to blue. Has to go back to blue. But
I always wonder about, because Vu's car wasn't black either. It was I'm forgetting what color. It's a pretty cool original color too. But I always wonder, at what point did these colors become boring and people wanted black or silver, or there was a car that was Irish green in the club for the longest time, and he shows up and I thought he got a second 911T. I said, wow, Matt. I'm like, you got another one? He goes, no, it's the same car, but it was aubergine. And I said, oh, you changed the color? He goes, well, this is the original color. The Irish green wasn't the original color, but I thought at some point that means that probably someone got tired of aubergine and painted it Irish green.
Well, I think you have to remember that these were used cars that people owned and drove, and the early cars didn't have the rust protection that it did, so rust might pop out, and so that gave the person the opportunity, if it wasn't in an accident or something, to go, oh, it's now my car, and I might want to choose a different color, because they may have seen so many silvers or so many of the standard colors, the non 4 or 5 bucket paint colors, and so they decided to do their own thing.
I've read that with the 356, you're almost given a pass for changing the color, because it was so common, and that as long as you do something from that period,
correct,
that you're okay. Obviously, you put chroma flare, you're going to get frowned upon at the meet. But if it's a color from that era, it's okay. Where I think with the 911s, that changes, and everyone wants originality and whatnot. But I always thought that was interesting that. 356 doesn't seem to be that much. I don't know if that's changed.
Well, I think it depends. If you're going to like the PCA, the parades, and you're having your car judged, they might want to know what it was, and they might go from your Cardex, and that might be a more
for restoration
thing.
Yeah.
They're really going to take a real strong look at what it was. And the reality is that these cars, as I said, have gone through many iterations of color changes, and then maybe someone who's emotional to his car can get to pick and choose a color that's important to him and or his father. I think that's the joy of having these cars and making them your own.
Sure. So your background, just a little bit more, I know you're a little bit more car related.
Well, yeah, I had my first ride in a Porsche 356 when my sister was dating a guy, and he had a slate gray red 356. I remember going up Green Spring Valley Road, and that really set something in place for me as an 8-year-old. Bought my first car when I was 15 and a half because I really wanted to date girls and didn't know how else to do it. I didn't want to be in my mother's car, so I bought a car that had a bad clutch. Next thing I know, I'm working on the car. I had no idea what I was doing. There was a box of parts left over afterwards. The car still ran. It was British, so I don't think it needed them all anyway. And then when I kept fiddling with cars, I actually started my own business. And I had another fellow who was truly a mechanic. He was really, really good, a good German mechanic. And he and I ran a shop for about 3 years. So I had that experience working on all flavors of cars. From Alfa Romeos to British to whatever. Loved working on the British cars because they broke down so much. That was a good pay job. Then I moved out to California, and I was the lead mechanic in the third largest Alfa Romeo dealership in the country for a while. That was really a great thing to do. And then I realized I was never going to make any money as a mechanic. So that's when I got out of that business and just started to go back to school and try to enter a different world. But I've always tinkered with cars. I've always had cars. It's always been a fascination
It's
for
right
me.
to say that you went into the finance world.
Eventually.
To me, it always strikes me as like the commercial, most interesting man alive, that you go from being a mechanic to
that was my
finance.
That was my 8th career. So I had built houses, sold houses. I had back in the day, you did whatever you could to keep it going. So I finally saw that finance was maybe a way to to finance my fun life, and so it was actually helped out quite a bit.
So have you? Obviously, you were in the British cars and Porsche. As long as I've known you, I think you've always had Porsches.
So I bought my first Porsche back in 82 or 83, and that was a 71 911 Targa. There is a picture of it up there. So I took that car from a rust bucket to that level of restoration. And it was a total, what I'll call nut and bolt restoration. So I touched everything on that car. The only thing I didn't do on that car was the paint, and I did everything else. That's what I'll use the word, because we're using this term today, restoration. That's a restoration. I don't know that I'm restoring cars as much as shops like CPR or whoever the big shops are who are actually restoring cars. I think I revitalize them, is to kind of utilize that term. But correct, yeah, I've had Porsches. I've had, I think, 14 Porsches in my 67 cars that I've owned. So I'm a Porsche branded guy.
And the reason you're president of the Going Group
is not because I have a Mercedes, but it's because my wife does. I married well, as I think you tried to help me out when I was dating this young lady. You said, don't do something, don't mess it up, I think was the terminology that you did. So yes, I married a 300 SL and a beautiful woman to boot, and that's the reason I'm the president. But being president of the Chesapeake region back in the 2016s or so, that helped me out to do that. So it's really fun to do it.
Yeah, it's and when I met you, I had no idea that you had the background of being an Alfa Romeo mechanic, and that because you hear finance, you're thinking, well, this guy could never have had a path that would have taken him. Yeah, exactly. So that was really fascinating when you told me that. Let me take a small break here before we get into the restoration story and talk about Automobile Atlanta. Are you chasing down a part for your Porsche that's impossible to find? Maybe you're restoring a 944 Turbo, hunting for a piece of trim for your 914, or searching for an original fuel distributor for your 911 SC. Either way, Automobile has you covered. Automobile Atlanta has you covered. They've been taking care of Porsches, and only Porsche, since 1978. Not only do they have every part for every Porsche, but they also ship internationally and offer expert tech advice to boot. So no matter where you are in the world, if you need a part for your Porsche, you can find it online at automobileatlanta.com. They also have a team of all-star Porsche specialists who handle everything from complex mechanical repairs to full restorations, regular servicing, and even detailing your car. They also buy and sell pre-owned vehicles. If there's a Porsche in your garage that needs a new home or a new lease on life, call them. They buy any Porsche. Whether you're rebuilding a classic or just need a single clip to finish a project, Automobile Atlanta has you covered. Head to automobileatlanta.com to find the Porsche parts you need, no matter how rare you think they are, and use the code PCA5 off, all in caps, for 5% off your first order. That's autoatlanta.com. Porsche parts, Porsche people, Porsche passion since 1978. And I was actually on there trying to make up a travel kit, because when we went down to Dukhart, I took some tools, but I realized I don't really have a whole lot of spare parts, because I only take the car to Cars and Coffee or tours. It's within that AAA 200-mile radius, and so when I didn't think I was taking the car to Luft, I didn't really plan that far ahead. And then, of course, the night before I find out that it's fixed and I can take it, I started going through Auto Atlanta and some other sites, thinking it's too late, but I really should have like a travel kit. I don't know if you have one, I thought distributor cap, points, spark plug, and then ignition wire, just something that if you break down that belt, Yeah,
the points. If you have points, if you have those parts, fan belts, they're very, very important to have, especially on the air-cooled cars, because if you're down, you might find them in a Napa, but I doubt it. So
yeah, or at least if you're on the side of the road and you got the tools, you can hopefully at least get it fixed so you can limp to
been there, done shop. That in the middle of Texas. So I lost points in a car. So get it completely. Have a travel kit.
And that was the problem with my car, was the points were bad. But the mechanic and Gennady and myself were both looking at it without our reading glasses, and we didn't notice that the actual contacts of the points were gone on one side.
Yep.
And so I had a bigger gap than I thought. So the reason we're here for the podcast is to hear about what you learned from restoring your 356. And I'm sure everyone, like I said, who's listening, who have a car that they're thinking about restoring and want to buy a car to restore, and what's involved, and how did you end up wanting to restore? So tell us first how you got this car.
So yeah, let's start there. So back in August of 24, there was a car that, sometimes I find cars and sometimes cars find me. And this is a car that found me. It was advertised on PCA Mart. It was advertised on the 356 registry. And I sort of followed this car a little bit, and it was really intriguing because it looked like to be a really fabulous car. And if you want to put that up, that'd be great. So here's the picture of the car I fell in love with. And from this picture, it looks like, wow. I mean, it really looks fantastic. So this car was owned by a PCA member. He had bought it from California. It was a number matching 356 SC, all California car. This is part of the sales pitch that came to me with the car. It was the shop that owned it in California that sold it to him. And this is a little bit for when we're buying cars and looking at cars, it is the buyer beware. You're going to take a look at this, and if you saw that car and you saw this description, you're like, wow.
Sure.
So I truly was not looking to restore, revitalize, or anything a car. I was looking to buy a number 2 car because I've had all those experiences through my life, and I just wanted to enjoy a car. So I had bought this car thinking, wow, it's really going to be the end-all be-all, and I'll just be able to drive it on at any show, and I'll just be able to have fun with it, and I don't have to worry about it.
Did they advertise it as a number 2?
They didn't, but I think in my mind I wanted to buy a number 2 at number 3 prices, and I bought a number 3 at a number 3 price.
So for those listening, number 2 is number 1 is like the best of that model. That's less than maybe 1%, maybe less in the world are really true number 1s. Number 2s are incredible cars, and they're usually not daily drivers. They're also will win any concours. Very impressive cars. 3 is what most of us want or hope.
Right.
And you talk to most people, and they think they have a number 2. But it's more like a 3 or a 4.
Yeah, so we've had Bob Miller on the show before. He's got spectacular cars. He finds very original cars, and that's not what I have. So, the non-original high number 2s or number 1s, they're very pricey. I recommend if you're buying a car to put in a collection, buy the best car you possibly can so that you don't have to go through what I did. But anyway, the car unveiled itself to me as I started to look at it. I'm a tinkerer. I'm a person who likes to make things better. So as I started to look at things, I didn't want to find things wrong, but this wasn't right, that wasn't right, this wasn't right. And so I started on this journey of correcting things. And a lot of cars, especially this vintage, have just deferred or neglected maintenance. So, interestingly, you get underneath the car and it has heater boxes. You pull a cable. So the cable had broken, and they used cotter pins, which is a unique way that we used to do it in the old days when you didn't buy a new part. But there was a lot of unorthodox parts on the car, or just things that I sort of expected in a car of this level. But the seller didn't sell anything to me that I didn't know about. He was very clear and wide open about everything. I had a hope and an expectation that it was something, but the more I looked into it, the more I'm like, I got into the rabbit hole deep. I got into the rabbit hole really deep because I keep fixing that, and that looked good, and the next thing didn't. And just as you said,
how long after you bought it did you say this is going to require restoration, not just fixing a couple of things that aren't right?
Again, you use the word restoration, and I think I decided to.
When you're taking glass out of the car, that's to me restoration.
The guys out there who do this professionally, they're the restorers. I'm not doing it professionally anymore, so I really call it the revitalization. But I just started buying one part. I got to be friends with the 356 registry folks. I got to find out the Auto Atlantas in the world. I've got their AM/FM period correct radio. I've got their gear shift lock. Yes, that works. I got that from them. So I started finding out that there were parts available. So I would spend time when my wife would go to bed because she's a doctor, goes to bed early, and on the TV, I'm on the screen, and I'm looking at the wish list of parts, and all of a sudden I just start buying parts, and I'm replacing parts. And I think that's part of the process in what I do. It's, do you repair, refurbish, or replace parts? You take a look at a car like Rob's car, and it's very original. Maybe a paint color change, but most of the parts are original. And so when you take a look at a part, you think to yourself, do you repair it? Does that repair, mean that you're going to refurbish it? There's a picture of some horns that I have on the car. So as I was putting this car back together, I looked at these horns that I had on my car, and they were rusted, and they didn't have the symbols on them. And then I decided I was going to really just refurbish it. Could have bought new ones. But I think the real thing for us, the guys who have the old cars, and of course Rob's very emotionally attached to his, I'm not as much, but to refurbish an old part and keep that part working, that's really joyful. I mean, it really is, the clocks in the cars, etc. So I went down this journey. I did not want to get the car painted. I don't like body shop's experiences. My body shop experience has been horrible. And so I looked for probably half a year about after I got all the mechanical things really kind of up to a higher level to finally say, I'm going to paint that car, because everybody said, why would you do that? And I said, well, this and that. And so,
there was no rust, or was
there was some minor rust, very, very minor rust in the car. Here's a great picture of the car, of why I bought this car, because it checks so many boxes. The undercarriage, it was perfect. Next picture. Yeah, so you can see what they did to prepare this car. So when I did, going back to that point, why I bought this car was it checked so many great boxes. It had great bones. That's a battery box to die for right there.
That's original?
That's been replaced, which is fine, because that's what happened. They all rust out. So, I went through that. I tried to update all those things. I finally got back to the point where I looked at the paint and I said, rabbit hole, here I come. So I went out and talked to several different paint shops, and I got quotes from anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000. And that is just very discouraging to me, because in my mind, remember, I thought about a number 2. And in fact, I was going to now have to make this decision to take the car off the road, dismantle it. I don't like body shops because it's always more expensive and more time. When I finally found the body shop that I went to, first thing I said to him, hi, I'm David Dukehart. I hate body shops. What a great way to start a relationship. But we really did have a great relationship, and a shout out to Matt Pratt, who at Top Coat up in Hampstead painted this car, and I think he and his team just did an awesome job. And you can see the work that they've done.
Had he painted 356 before?
He had a 356 in his building. Mine was, I believe, the first. There are lots of Porsches and 911s and Lamborghinis and a lot of other exotic metal up there. But he did have a little bit of a learning process on my car. It really turned out fantastic.
What would be different? You hear people saying, well, I just want a Porsche guy. I don't want anybody else to touch the car. But I always say sometimes a mechanic is a mechanic. And, you don't have to be a Porsche mechanic to set a points. If you know how to set points, then you can probably set them on a Porsche.
So I think when you go back to this vintage, I'm a control guy, so I took the car apart. I was going to take the car and put the car back together. It's I think a lot of the shops these days, the young guys, and Matt's team is one of those teams, very efficient, very diligent, what have you, but they don't know the details on that car. They don't have that. So that's why I wouldn't ask them to put the car back together, because I'm going to spend extra time. I didn't just put the horns back on, I rebuilt them. I didn't just put the lights back on, maybe I did replace them. So I went through all of that process and made those decisions of, does this part match up to the rest of the car, and go through that process. There's folks, I think, down on the Eastern Shore, CPR, they, live, eat, and breathe this stuff. And they'll probably come to my car and say, well, you didn't do that right, or it's not the right finish. So I think when you choose the body shops of where you're going to go, you like to have the experience. You like to see other cars in the shop, because you want to know what the outcome's going to be. So, it's been a really, really good experience. Matt and his team have, put a little bit of joy in my life by having this car painted this color. He was very exuberant about having a color change on the car. And as you well know, my Card X color is ivory. The car was painted that signal red. And what I really decided to do was choose a color that I really liked, which is ruby, because I'm not going to put it in that high-end Concours. And if somebody really doesn't like my color, well, that's their fault, not mine. So I don't really need their opinion, but thanks very much. But, the bottom line is it's been really getting towards the end of the revitalization of the car, and you see some of the parts working, like everything in that car works. I've got a key for the glove box. I got a key for the gear shift lock. I've got the radio, the clock works. And I've reached out to so many folks that we know, like the folks at GT Performance at Gennady. He did the lock for me. Auto Atlanta, I got parts from them. I got parts from Sierra Madre. I got parts from Stoddard. And of course, the way that I really learned more about Sierra Madre is I was fortunate enough to be invited to come to Works Reunion in 2024. 5 minutes after I bought the car, you guys let me in. There was a Sierra Madre.
It was a shout out to Ron Gordon.
Finding
baby. Lawn space to park you.
Park my car. Just snuck me in at the last minute. Don't ask him to do that, please, because that was I paid him a lot of money to do that. Just anyway. But, so then I started a relationship with Sierra Madre. And I think that's, if you're in the process of repairing, refurbishing, replacing parts, is that to get the folks who are going to be able to supply those parts is really incredible. The one other thing, and again, I've got several books here, so Rob is kind of averse to doing the mechanical thing, but I think he's diving into it. There's so many books out there that you can just read about these cars, how to buy them. The 356 registry is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
In the forum.
And I always tell people, you don't have to choose between PCA and the registry. You can actually belong to both.
You can belong to both. It's not you're welcome in both corners.
Exactly.
But one of the things about doing this revitalization, as I call it, and you'll see this red folder here. I'm not going to open it up, but inside this red folder, the key thing that I wanted to do was to document everything. And I think when you buy a car, if you're looking out there in the world to buy a car, if you can't, buy the best car you possibly can, so you don't have to have a folder like this, but you really like to see where the history has been. Has the owner really taken great care of this car? What things have been neglected? Much to my wife's chagrin, we're potentially looking at a 356 this weekend that she didn't know about. And even though I told her very clearly, I said, do not let me do this again, because I'm to a point in my life at my age that I want to enjoy the cars and not maybe work on them so much, because it is a bit of a distraction. But yes, we're going to go look at another one. And now, unfortunately, I've become a bit of an expert on these cars, because I know what fits and what doesn't fit. I know who to talk to about this, that, or the other. Even on a car that I was looking to buy prior to this one, I sent the VIN numbers, pictures of the VIN numbers, to the past president of the 356 registry, and those guys are rabid fans of these cars. Go on to Bring a Trailer anytime, pick up any 356, and you'll see all of their notes. And you have to go to that proctology exam when you put a car on Bring a Trailer, and these guys come out of the woodwork, and that's right, this is wrong, that's right, and this is wrong, and it's very helpful. And the car that I had sent to them that I really wanted to buy, a 65 356 SC cab, they said run away from it, because it's either been wrecked or stolen or blah, 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 because that number was incorrect. So I think due diligence really matters if you're out there looking at a car. Buy the best car you possibly can. Find out if you really want to do the so-called revitalization that I did. As I've been kind of coaching Rob, it's your car. Nobody can tell you what to do about it. Do it as you see fit, that it makes the most sense to you. Put a plan together if you care to start saying, okay, well, what are the most important things I need to do, and how do I start putting a list together, and figure it's going to take you more time and more money than you want to spend, unless you buy that car initially.
So the time part, I always tell people who are, and I've told this to Rob, and Rob bought a Cayenne, so at least he has another Porsche in the family.
It starts every time he gets into it.
Right.
But I said, because I restored at 80% a 914 years ago. But what happened, and this happens to a lot of people restoring cars, is you hit a 2-year mark, 3-year mark, and you haven't driven the car in that time, It's been sitting. Hopefully you're working on it little by little, like I was. But you kind of forget what it's like to drive, and you fall out of love with the car. And I tell people, be careful, because if you don't get to drive the car and enjoy it, and you buy it right away and start restoring it, if you're doing a full-blown nut and bolt restoration, that's a lot to ask to get to wait that long and to go through all that and not being able to drive it. Did you give yourself a timeline when you were doing all this? Like, I want to have it done by such and such time?
Well, the answer is yes. It was the boardwalk reunion.
That was your goal.
That was my goal, and I had it done a day before that.
No kidding.
No kidding. And the car had been sitting for a while. Maybe I mentioned this to you. One of the things, if you have an old 356, maybe you had tried this, please don't. I used starting fluid to start the car. I was by myself in the garage, and next thing I knew, it was on fire. Very quickly, I put it out, obviously, because there was no fuel there.
The freshly painted car is on fire?
No, that's right. It was a little bit like, But anyway, it was just the starting fluid, which, of course, these cars backfire when they're lean. But anyway, I had that timeline that I wanted to get it done by then, and it really pushed me to do it. But I think when you buy one of these cars, I was unsuspectingly going to revitalize it. Then I really got into it, and I didn't have a formal plan per se, because things just kept growing. That rabbit hole, I just kept going down. Oh, I got to fix that. I got to fix this. But I think that the bottom line is, if you're thinking about doing this, whether you're at Rob's mechanical skill and you're going to get somebody else and pay somebody else to do it, figure what your time is, figure out what your money is, and stick to it. On my side of the fence, since I am retired, I've got time, and so I did want to do everything that I wanted to do to my level. But I agree with you. If the car sits too long, I fell out of love with this car. I totally fell out of love with it, and now I'm starting to get that back.
And I guess, like Rob, so you're not going to be doing it yourself.
Yeah.
Then now you got to manage the shop, be it the mechanical or the.
I'm gonna have him do most of it.
He's gonna be your general contractor.
Yeah, well, he's done the legwork on finding the right paint guy, and if that's the difference, right? He talked about taking everything out himself, the gauges, the windows. I'd obviously be paying someone to do that, or just showing up in his driveway and.
But let me just share a thought with you. So many years ago, I did a cosmetic restoration on a 1976 911 Targa. Car was a great shape, California car. A friend of mine owned it, and I did a cosmetic restoration on it. I did a 10-article issues for the patter at the time, and the title of those articles, "What Drives You, Fear or Passion?" And so Rob doesn't know about the cars, so that fear might hold him back from doing things. And my suggestion is, no, let it be your passion. The parts can be bought. A person built it. We can rebuild it. Whatever that is. I've learned a lot. I had many fallbacks on this car, and I had to learn something again, because I wasn't the expert on how to do that. But I am now, because I've done it 5 times on my own car.
So what advice would you give? Are you advising Rob? So Rob his doors are rusted.
Yes.
And but to me it looks like the rest of the car is fine. Not maybe to the level of your car, but a good driver. Are you telling him to get a full repaint, or just fix the doors and keep on driving it?
Well, I like spending other people's money. That's pretty easy. It's as I said. I want to get a shirt made that says, "I'm not collecting opinions today," because a lot of people want to come up and they want to sort of tell you what you could, would, or should do, or that's right, or that's wrong.
Exists.
Yeah. Anyway, I think Rob has a different connection with his car, which I think is really, really cool. At the 70th anniversary at Hunt Valley Porsche, I had a chance to meet his parents, his father, mother, and his daughter, and it was just neat to hear that story. So he has this emotional attachment to this car. What color do I choose? That's a major decision for him. If I painted the car blue, if I painted my car red, it doesn't matter. My suggestion to him, because he comes from it from a totally different perspective, it's a very emotional one, and it feeds him, which is really, really cool. So I would say, first of all, think, if you're going to do some work to the car, think about your budget first. Think about really what your ultimate goal is, and let that be your driving force. If the car has some structural or mechanical issues that are going to stop you from driving the car, fix them first. That's what I did with mine. You'll see I redid the brakes on my car that had rusted calipers on it. So I went through those things. And I think Rob has really tried to do that because his car has been sitting for a while, and he took it to a shop and basically said, fix it, get it up and running, and had the right to check to get that done. So where he wants to go or where someone else wants to go, I think you have to determine what's the most important thing. I think keeping it in the family, much like my wife's car is a family car, it's been handed down, it'll continue to be handed down. That's really cool, keeping them to that original way that you knew the car is. He said his car is silver, and that's a personal choice. However deep he wants to get is really determined upon, again, the time issue, because if you give this car over to a car shop and it's a lot of metal work that might need to be done. Oh, and by the way, once we start poking, there's that thing that needs to be done and this thing, the old rabbit hole. So I think the process is set a budget, set a time frame, the same things you were talking about, and make the determination what you want the car to be. If you want it to be a number one car to compete against guys like Bob Miller, you're going to spend a lot of time and a lot of money. Do you really want to do that, or do you just want to enjoy the car? So I think it's to each his own in this process. I'm a little bit OCD in the world, and so one thing begets the other, and I continue to fix that, make that change, do this, do whatever, and that's just a personality issue. So I think there's many ways he can attack his issues, whether it's just replacing a door, replacing the bottom. There's ways to go around it to kind of save dollars in the process. But I think ultimately you got to think about, what do I really want this car to be? So when I bought my car, again, a lot of people are in the mode these days of buying and selling cars and doing that thing called flipping. I'm not that person. But at the same time, being the investment guy, I don't want to I don't want to have a car that's going to go backwards on me in a big way. Whether my car will or won't, that's to be determined in the future. So I've got a lot more money in the car than I ever thought I would. I do. I really do. But that's my personality, and I fed it. Would I suggest him to go through that? The one benefit for him to maybe go a little bit deeper than he is his purchase cost is really great, right? I had a higher purchase cost, so that was my first hurdle. And I think, as I said, it's fun to look at a car like his, to go through it, to see what is original, what's not. I mean, I had my head underneath the dashboard the other day, and I saw the flasher, and it was the original flasher, and I was excited to see that. And then I look at the radio, and I see that the bracket's wrong. It was wrong on mine. And I'm like, that's a $10 item. But, how far do you want to do these things? And I was joking with Rob.
Up until that point, you probably didn't realize you had.
He didn't realize.
I had no idea. But I did get a text from him,
whatever,
that night saying, I can put a list together of stuff that I think you need to get.
Okay.
I'd be happy to do that for you.
And you offer that service at any car that calls.
I give unsolicited advice to anybody. If you don't like my advice, if I come up to you and I start giving you unsolicited advice, my safety word is, I got to go to church. You can just say, I got to go to church, and that means you're not talking to me anymore. I completely
We always joke about that. It always happens at Cars and Coffee. There's certain people, we weren't talking about you, though, but there's other people that will come up and tell you everything that's wrong with your car, unsolicited.
Unsolicited.
Yeah. And like people, they'll say, I thought I had a nice car until about 5 minutes ago, but evidently I got a piece of crap because nothing's original in it anymore.
Don't listen to those folks. They're projecting, and they're just telling you what they know, whether you like it or not. I am guilty of doing that as well. But one of the things about the revitalization of my car and putting the right radio bracket on, it's the things that people don't see. So if you take the door panels off my car, you'll see the extra attention to sound deadening. You'll see it on the floorboards. You'll see all those things, the extra things that I did a lot of things to that car that people don't see. I love my wife very much. She has this old car. She had these things called Rudge wheels. I took them off, cleaned them off, and I painted them the original color. And my wife, she's like, why would you do that? Why would you spend the time to do that? No one will see them. And my wife's a surgeon, and I said, do you ever do an internal stitch? And she says, yes. I go, why do you do that? Nobody will see it.
Thank God you don't work for the medical field.
That's right. So again, in trying to get the car to my high level, that's my choice. And Rob's going to choose his level. He's not going to listen to anybody else but his family, himself. And the key thing is to have joy while you're doing this. And if it doesn't become joyful, do something else. Pick up another hobby.
Well, that's been very interesting. I listened to parts of your presentation at the parking lot at Boardwalk Reunion that you were telling people that wanted to listen about how you brought the car to what it was. But now it's even more interesting hearing directly from you what you did to the car, because when you showed up at Works Reunion telling me you just bought this car, I remember people crowded around the car when you parked it, and it looked like a great number 2.
So I had some 356 guys. There's 3 or 4 of them. I said, hey, come take a look at my car. I just bought it. And they did exactly what you just said. The car color was white. This is that. They went through this whole litany like I'm doing with Rob, just out of the goodness of their heart. They weren't trying to be mean in any way, shape, or form, but they were giving me that information. And that was where I really started to think, what am I going to do with this car? Am I going to make it bigger, better, greater, because it had lacking of certain things? And that's when I made the decision.
I don't think it's limited to 56, because when I was at Lufthansa, a guy who I'd never met before came up to me and he goes, I just want to let you know that your hockey pucks, your side markers are backwards. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, because you got them flipped left and right. They go the other way. And
that's good information.
I'm like, I did not realize that. Yeah. Evidently, I've had them like that for 30 years and just never realized that. Never looked at another 914 to see, do I have them right or wrong? Because when I put them on, it didn't even occur to me that maybe I'm doing it the wrong way.
Well, but that's it. The same thing that I learned about my car. So I did learn towards the end of working on my own car, and this was one of the downfalls of doing your own work. It seemed if I had a 50-50 option of one way or the other way, I was 100% wrong. Most of the time. I mean, I'm like, I can't believe it. So I'll tell a quick story on myself. So I put the cables back up for the speedometer and the tachometer. They sit next to each other. I remember I took everything out, so I was putting everything back in, and I'm getting ready to start the car, and I put the cables up, and I had a 50-50 chance, 50-50, and they were somewhat close, and I felt like I didn't even have to think about it. Anyways, I'm trying to start the car, the speedometer needle's moving, and I'm like, I'm not moving, and I'm like, ah! So, those are the trials and tribulations, I think, of working on your own car. I wasn't an expert on the 356. I have some mechanical knowledge. I think if you trust yourself a little bit and realize it's not the end of the world if you do something crazy like that, and it can be easily fixed, that you'll have a lot more fun, and you don't need to see a therapist about the craziness that you might have in your mind, which is what I do.
Well, luckily you have a very understanding wife who's also into cars, so
she's into a car, but she accommodates me in my car.
Well, she comes with you to all the PCA stuff.
She does. She comes to most of the things that So I was very fortunate. That's one of the things, by the way, that got me to meet her, because before we knew each other, somebody wanted me to meet her, and I said, have her Google me. And she saw that I was into Porsches. And then she got into this whole conversation, do you like other cars and what have you?
Did you really say Google me?
I absolutely positively said Google me.
Relationship.
I said, have her Google me. I know it's rude, but I was almost 60, and I swore off women. I was really done. Anyway, so I said to Google me. She saw the PCA connection. She asked me if I liked other cars. She said her father had a car, and I said, what does he have? And he has a 300 SL. And I said, after I meet you, can I meet your father? I thought that was appropriate, which her father called me on one time. Did you know I had a 300 SL before you married my wife? And I'm like, yes, sir, I did, guilty. But also, I told her I could work on that car, and my wife has a wonderful sense of humor. She said, that's one reason you're still in the running.
Wow.
She's very straightforward. I thought she wanted this, but she really likes this.
Yeah.
You get to a certain age, and that's going to go away.
Yeah.
The hands, the knowledge,
We fade, right? But, one of the questions you asked earlier on about, where do I kind of gauge myself as a mechanic, I used to be really good. So again, remember I told you the 50-50 options weren't always really good. So recently I was working on a part, and I've got a toolbox and I've got my mindset on everything I'm trying to repair, and I'm saying this to you, once you get the tools and the place to work on cars, don't be afraid to do it. And I'm out there working on a piece, and now I need help. I usually work by myself, and I was frustrated because I'm looking at this part, and this is why I'm saying you get over these things. And I asked my wife to come out just to hold something. She's a surgeon. She's bright. She comes out, and within 3 minutes, she fixes the thing that I've been fussing over for an hour. So, had a little humility, and I'm like, this is good. We're a team, not, she's better than me, or I can't believe how stupid I am. But nonetheless, you're learning in this process. So I used to be better. I'm kind of tailing off, but it's still fun to get out there and have fun with the cars.
Well, that's why we're doing it.
Yeah,
have fun.
That's what we're doing.
Good stuff. So let's be sure to head over to www.pca.org to sign up for PCA's newsletters, Performance News, e-brake news, and Mark Fresh, all free. Just go to www.pca.org and you'll see how to sign up for the newsletters. Let's move to Porsche News. First thing up is the you guys hear that Porsche filed a patent for a tri-turbo 18-cylinder engine where they have 3 banks. I think Damon has it up on the screen. That shares 1 crankshaft, but 3 individual banks, 6 cylinders each.
Well, didn't they put a W?
So the Bugatti
engine.
Yeah, I think this is a unique design from when I was
I was
reading, and different than the Bugatti. But I don't believe they've actually built one of these. It's just a patent following a concept. But I don't know what they're put it in.
Yeah,
but it's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool, and you look how really the lower level of that engine too. They could probably put it.
And all I could think of was, especially after we did Tech Tactics Live with the Cayenne and everything that can go wrong, because once again, you're hearing the worst of the worst, that can go wrong. All I thought was, wow, what's the maintenance cost on something like that?
Maybe it's going into another tractor.
Right? You never know. Once EVs take over, that may be it. The other one, I'll let Damon, since he edited the article, the 2026 Macan GTS EV was released.
Yeah, so the Macan GTS, we all knew that it was coming at some point, as it Porsche always saves the GTS, I feel like, for last, after the Turbo S, or, well, I guess not Turbo S in this case, but here it is. It's the most sporty version of the Macan Electric, and what you're getting is the same pulse inverter in the rear, 900 amp pulse inverter of the Macan Turbo. You get the same front motor and the same rear motor, and that actually makes me wonder why it's only 563 horsepower, not turbo horsepower, and if you'll be able to get a little bit more out of it.
So we haven't got an answer yet?
Well, I did, but the spokesperson did not answer my question directly twice, but did confirm that it's the same pulse inverter and the same motors front and rear. So
it's like a turbo in disguise.
Detuned a little bit,
but detuned. So why did they detune it? And can you open up that detune to get the power back?
Here's another thing, or something to think about is I wonder if, I'm going to scroll down for those on YouTube. Looks like I've had the article not in the right place, but it has a track endurance mode. So I'm wondering if the trade-off of the Turbo versus the Macan GTS, and I'm sure it's just, hierarchy, but, a little bit lower horsepower, but you can use it for longer. So apparently,
that's interesting.
Yeah, if you're going to be on using your Macan GTS electric on track, it should keep its 509 continuous horsepower for longer than most EVs because it cools the battery and preps the whole car for, long sessions of track driving.
How many people do they think are going to take a Macan EV to the track? Not as like we did the Porsche driving experience where we get to drive them on the track, but
yeah, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure the way I drive a back road, if you give me a full day, I think you would need track mode or track endurance mode to keep that power up the whole time. So, but yeah, very, very cool electric SUV. And, if I were in the market for one of these new Macans, money no object, it would probably be the GTS.
Yeah, that's the one with all the nice features always and the nicer interior without the turbo price. Let's see, PCA events. We have our final event of the year for National coming up, Unstock, which is going to be at Porsche Santa Clarita out in California on November 16th. As of this recording, registration is still open. We have about 20 spots, but by the time you hear this, which is going to be 2 weeks later, it may be filled up. If it is filled up, you can still come out and hang out. There's a ton of parking there. We're going to have some Porsche-only parking for people who aren't in the show. If you've never been there, you really got to see this dealership. It's very impressive. They have what's called the Underground, which is like their own museum, and it is filled with interesting cars. And on the showroom floor, you've probably seen pictures of this. They have a glass floor that you can look down into the museum. It's very impressive. And the showroom floor was filled with ST, GT3 RSs, turbos, and a whole bevy of different colors. That was made me wish I won the lottery. First place I would go to buy a car.
Eye candy to purchase when you're out there, right?
We have any PCA video updates or anything?
No, right now, videos preparing for Tech Tactics Live took quite the number on my video output, so my apologies on that.
But you can watch Tech Tactics Live, which the majority of people watch it after we record it, on the PCA YouTube channel.
Exactly, and I should say that I know what's coming up. I did a review of a base 2021 Macan, and I also reviewed my own V6 Cayenne, a 2005 model. It's a little bit more of a unique review, and I'll put the camera on me actually right now. Let's see if this works here. But yeah, it's a pretty realistic review because it's a 174,000 mile Cayenne, and it's nice, but it's got the common problems, sort of thing, the ones you want to watch out for. So that should be good, and I have a couple ideas of cars I'd like to review here in the local area, and also when I'm out in California.
Yeah, we'll probably do a walk around that Unstock too to show you the cool cars. Which haven't looked at registration. There is quite a few cool cars coming to this event, so look out for that. This will plug PCA Sim Racing, which you can also go to the YouTube channel, and they have a whole list of live events that we're showing that you can also watch after they've been recorded. And you can go to PCASimRacing.com if you have any questions or you want to give it a try. It's a lot cheaper than doing real racing. Depending on your rigs.
Right.
So we were having dinner last night talking about the sim racing and how the rigs can get really expensive if you start to get really into it. But if you just want to start getting into it, it's not too bad. If you want some PCA Insider merchandise, go to PCAWebstore.org, and you can go to the PCA Insider part. We have mugs, bottles, and if you want one of the PCA Insider decals, which fit inside or outside of your car, send your address and your mailing information to podcast@pca.org, and we'll mail it out to you free of charge. Anything else, Damon?
No, I'm pretty sure that's good. In the transfer over to the podcast setup today, I forgot to load a few graphics, but I think I got the decals and the web store thing in.
Well, if you're still listening at the end, we'll maybe put them back in for you in the final edit. Gentlemen, it's been very enlightening. I don't know if Rob has decided yet what he's going to do with this car, but evidently he knows where you live.
Right.
So he can come by your house and...
the pictures that him working on the car was in my garage.
That's
so
right. There you go.
So he already does know where I live.
It's like having a boat. It's better if you have a friend with a boat. So
That's right.
You don't have a lift in your garage, do you?
I have just a quick jack. I try not to go too beyond my capabilities anymore. So the answer is no.
Well,
so
quick
all you
jack's
folks
better
out there,
than-
don't bring your cars to my house. I don't have a lift.
All right, thanks for listening. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and consider sharing our show with fellow Porsche enthusiasts. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll catch you on the road.
Thank you, guys.